I will say there's at least one piece of excitement out here as we have dinosaurs actually topping a regional pre-Transcendrake. A big 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so you guys don't miss out. More awesome content. Today we're going to be looking at the Nebraska regional breakdown here. And this is kind of interesting. We had double Kashtira decks in the top cut. Now, to be perfectly honest with you at this stage, I'm exceedingly happy to see that we are seeing, Kashtira at least in slightly less representation. At least, unlike some of these regionals out here where we've seen Kashtira taking down major W's, this one's a little bit more budgeted. Now, we did see that Despia was a little bit of a stronger competitor here out of this event, which I think is pretty good. All right, the fact that, Despia is a little bit further behind than Super Heavy Samurai in terms of meta, but, for the balancing act that this was for this regional, I'm happy to see that at least, what we expect to be the top two competitors out here, or at least part of the top three, are doing well. Now, we also had a Dragon Link deck in Top Cut. I unfortunately do not have that list to talk about at this point in time, but we've seen a little bit more Dragon Link kind of showing up out here. And I think the more that we're going to see, players kind of bringing these different builds to the table, trying out these different ideas to try to break the meta. It's definitely going to be something that we're going to continue to see here. We also had Super Heavy Samurai, aka, I get like 5 tech choices in the deck. We also had Sword Soul out here in Top Cut, which this Sword Soul build is actually kind of interesting. We're actually taking advantage of the little apple dragon in here to test out some different ideas. And of course, we have good old Dinosaur actually making laps here. And I am exceedingly excited to actually take a look at how this Dinosaur build is, going to be stacking up against the rest of the meta kind of going forward here. Let's pass on over to those top deck lists. All right, the first list we're going to be talking about here, we got to get the boring Kashtira stuff out of the way, so bear with me here for a second. Super exciting things about this Kashtira list. Well, we're actually playing the Tier Elements Kashtira for once. We don't hardly see this card seed play anymore because so many people would rather just not play it. Not really much of a point. A little bit of milling, but it's not really worth it. We have some Book of Moons and some Econs in here for some defensive options. So we are going to be taking advantage of some of the stronger asset classes out here. And then we are main decking 2 copies of Talents. And this is where you're seeing the Pot of Prosperities and Pot of Desires both storming into the format here. This deck actually for a little while now has kind of started to take advantage of the 2 of these. In a previous video when we were talking about analyzing, I was actually kind of surprised to see more and more of this kind of taking over, but as of filming this now, this has kind of become more of a mainstay at this point in time. And then down here you see the Nightmare Corruptor Iblis doing their thing. Now this build is actually a lot less hand trapped out than a lot of the other builds that we've seen out here. We've seen Droll and double shift and triple shifter in a lot of decks. This build didn't even opt for them. It felt that it didn't need them. So that tells you a lot about the duality of the format in certain sectors. You're seeing Dimensional Shifter, and you're seeing, the heavier pushes for the Nightmare Corruptor Iblis here. Meanwhile, you kind of rewind here, and you're like, well, this area is not even showcasing that. Interesting stuff. Next up here is our next Kashtira deck. We are missing an extra deck card down here. Not that big of a deal. You can go, it's probably Donner or Fossil Skull Warrior, it all kind of comes together at the end of the day here, but in terms of power for this build, oh look, we're playing Shifter. We have good old Gammas in the main deck. We are siding the Drolls, and we are siding the Kurikaras down here as well. And one of the other interesting things this build is actually playing Summon Limit. We've seen a little bit of Summon Limit showing up a little bit more. It hasn't been a crazy amount, but it's been enough that I think the players are kind of looking around here and going, maybe bringing in Summon Limit in certain matchups really is worth it. And I would say, yeah, the answer is yes, it is worth it. This card single-handedly allows you the chance to play against Super Heavy Samurai. Forcing them onto 2 summons is hilarious. All right, I mean, especially like if you don't see the draw or the shifter, and you went first, obviously, and you can set the summon limit and you go ahead and flip it, and your opponent's just like, what in the world am I supposed to do to this? This floodgate is definitely warping the format in certain sectors. That's why I've enjoyed talking about Kashtira's little innovations this format, because these have been a little bit more exciting than they were previously, because now they have to deal with way more BS than we had previously already seen out here. Next up here, we have DINOSAUR. Now, this is what I was actually talking about earlier, where we saw dinosaurs actually doing something. Now, formalities aside, yeah, we are playing Dark Roll No Mores in the main deck. I do kind of think you need this card. There are so many huge boards out here right now that are just being set up, and because of that, you need ways to break them. And then, of course, my favorite combo in the whole wide world is activate Dark Will No More, activate Dark Hole. Reason why you're playing Dark Hole is you can blow up a baby here and then go ahead and resolve full combo effectively. You do have to remember, you do get extra synergy with something like this. It's why they're not exploring 3 of this, because you're already playing 44 cards as it is. You've got to remember that you can't go too crazy. At least in terms of numbers. And holy moly, we are playing triple copies of Listogasm here. Obviously, we are playing the Wondergonic Diagram, which is fine, but holy moly. Talk about the fact that this deck actually can extra deck rip your opponent and force them into a bad situation. Actually is kind of cute. Then, of course, we're deciding 1 copy of the Rainbow 5 Magician. And then you do see some anti-spell fragrances and some dimensional barriers down here, so this deck can actually play the game. I don't have anything else really too crazy to say about this. Looks pretty standard to me. Next up here, we have Super Heavy Samurai. The first thing that I'm going to tell you here is glad to see we are playing the Spell Canceller, and we are siding the Saruja here. Free Spell Canceller, special summon, make the Saruja, go ahead and drop the Spell Canceller, laugh at your opponent all the way to the bank because they can't play the game. Easiest thing in the world. I have seen that Double Fenrir has been showing up a lot more as of late. This has definitely been one of the more go-to things as of late. The biggest thing with this, honestly, is it pulls itself. It's a +1 out of the deck, and you can go ahead and Pendulum Summon. Yay! It's really about the most exciting things you get here. And then this is your more extended Bysteel package. We have seen some builds out here actually kind of showcasing the fact that, hey, we were going to get triple Magna Hut and 1 Druis Worm. We've seen double Magna Hut, 1 Druis Worm, but for the most part here, that's what you're kind of seeing in terms of this, and then more defensive options in the Kurikaras and the Nibiru's. I'm happy to see that the deck is doing good. But when your build is so cookie cutter at this point in time, it flows together so much. There's not a lot of creativity and things that you're really going to get out of the Super Heavy Samurai department as of this stage. But once again, I'm just happy to see we have one more viable deck. Next up here is our Sword Soul variant. We are playing little Apple Dragon. So, yeah, little Ring-a-Worm here. If a face-up non-effect monster is on the field, free special summon this from your hand. And then during the main phase, if you synchro summon this turn, you can banish this card from graveyard, special summon 100 Apples token, and the player who summoned it can treat it as a tuner for a synchro summon. So my first immediate thing is, as long as I have a face-up non-effect monster on the field, well, that's pretty easy. I mean, this makes free token. This is a non-effect monster, right? Okay. You got a lot of cool things that you pull out with this. Now, we are also playing the Sword Soul Punishment. As long as you control a synchro monster, target 1 card on the field or in either graveyard and banish it. If your opponent controls a Ritual, Future, Synchro, Exceed, or Link monster, you can banish the synchro from your graveyard to add this to your hand. You can only use each effect of Sword Soul Punishment once per turn. I really wish that this was on a quick play, but this does provide you an optional, blowout for something that looks like it's going to be a problem. Also has Sword Soul in the name, so if you need to search for, an out to something, you actually have access to it on a card, which is actually pretty good. That's what you want to see. So that wraps up our breakdown here out of Nebraska. There's been a lot of meta decks. I understand that. But in terms of how everything's looking, I'm happy to see what Rogue has been doing well, and I think that we're going to continue to see some very interesting Rogue do its job out here. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.